Senator Cantwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I stayed around just to wish you a happy birthday. And to ask Mr. Wheeler some questions. And I'm very glad that he brought up Newton Minnow. I remember that story about Newton Minnow, I think, taking President Kennedy around, or maybe it was Senator Kennedy at the time, and he said, why are we launching satellites instead of people, into space? And Minnow said, because ideas last longer than people do. And I think that's a very important question when it comes to the media and media consolidation. I want lots of ideas. I don't want ideas packaged up and shoved down local throats of individual broadcasters saying, this is the news, and that's the way it's going to be. So one question I have for you is this issue of media consolidation and your role on the FCC. You know about previous chairmen and their attempts to advocate for rule. Then Senators Obama and Biden joined us in disapproval resolutions. Last week, Gannett newspaper announced it was going to purchase Belo's 23 television stations, and so that includes King in Seattle, Crim in Spokane, and KRW in Portland. And while the purchase is subject to the approval of both the FCC and DOJ, I think Gannett is trying to basically use these ownership rules, use the whole shared service agreement as a way to get around those rules. So I'm very, very concerned about that whole issue. And so do you believe in that making it easier for owners of daily newspapers to own television stations and radio stations the same market is what's wrong with the newspaper industry? Is that the way we need to be going?
Senator, I understand the seriousness of this issue, and I have long been an advocate of diversity of voices. On the specific issue that you just raised, I also note that the chairman has asked the GAO to opine on this issue, and I think that's appropriate, called for, and I look forward to their opining, their opinion. But I think you said the key thing, that when the commission looks at these issues, competition, localism, and diversity are the issues that should be the touchstones, not business plans.
And so do you believe that some broadcasters could abuse those shared services or joint sales agreements to get around those ownership rules?
I am not informed enough to be explicit on that, but I am going to be, and I look forward to pursuing that issue with you.
And so you basically believe that this is an issue that the commission needs to give more attention to assure members of Congress, otherwise we'll have another disapproval resolution, that there is going to be an adherence to not a continued move on consolidation. And I guess I was asking, my first question is, a lot of people try to put forth the notion that newspaper industries in and of itself are having problems, and this is why you should allow the consolidation of media to save the day. And so I'm trying to get your thoughts on that.
I'm a business person, and it has been my experience that the way to grow businesses when they are challenged by new technologies is to embrace those new technologies, and that's the way of working yourself out of this kind of a situation. That's the best way of working yourself out of this kind of situation.
So you don't run to the explanation of, well, let's just allow for all sorts of integration to solve this problem, and thereby throw out these very legitimate concerns about over-consolidation in the market.
I am specifically trying not to be specific on that, Senator, because I want to become more informed. I do understand the seriousness of this, and I understand the priority of competition, localism, and diversity trumps everything.
Okay. Okay, on the progeny petition, are you familiar with that?
Yes, ma'am.
There was a lot of discussion about whether interference was actually going to happen or not. Will you pursue an aggressive approach to make sure that you're monitoring complaints and things so that we actually see what's happening? And
The answer is yes, because if one of the solutions to the spectrum crunch is to use spectrum more efficiently, that inherently means sharing, whether it's geographic sharing, time sharing, or barely sharing. And that means you have to be monitoring interference to make sure that this efficiency is in fact happening.
okay, so appreciate that. And then on this unlicensed spectrum, we heard a lot about the spectrum crunch today, but do you believe there's a crunch in unlicensed spectrum?
You know, I think I am a supporter of unlicensed spectrum. I find it noteworthy that unlicensed has been the rescuer of licensed in so many ways, that a third to three-quarters of the wireless data, the mobile data out of a smartphone ends up going through unlicensed spectrum rather than licensed spectrum. That unlicensed is the home to innovation, and therefore that we need to have unlicensed spectrum.
So you support broadcast white spaces for unlicensed?
And at the, yes, and at the same point in time, I recognize that the job of the commission is to balance out the demands between, okay, here's licensed that you can sell, that will fund FirstNet and other kinds of activities, and here's unlicensed that you can't sell, and how do you reach the balance on those? But I do not take lightly the significance of unlicensed spectrum.
Thank you. I see my time has expired.